All right.
All right, so fucking cool here with Greg Kihn. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. And thanks for having me on the show.
So I understand you got a new album out. Is that right?
Yeah, it's my first studio album in 20 years. And people are saying, hey, Greg, why did you take it 20 years between albums? And the truth is I was on the radio for the last 20 years on K-Fox radio in San Francisco. And I've been doing the morning show since, since 4 o'clock in the morning. So I made a little detour there. But, I got fired from the radio gig about 3 years ago. And it's great to have nothing but lots of time on my hands. And we're hitting the road. We got a new album. We're hitting the road. And everything is really a good thing.
Now, it's got to be a little bit bittersweet releasing the album with the passing of Stephen Wright this year.
That really hurts because Stevie and me we were the heart of the band, and we were together from day one, really. And it was Stevie that started the Greg Kihn band with me when I first came to Berkeley, California, back in 1971. I remember I used to play. You know what busking is?
Like a sideshow performer, kind of like on the street, but
Yeah, right. Like I used to come with my guitar, and I used to go on the street and just open the guitar case, and people would throw quarters in there, and and dollars and stuff, and we would sit there and play like every song we knew, and during like an afternoon, I'd make like $40 or $50, which is huge money back in those days. You could almost live on that. So we used to go down, and one day we're playing on the corner at Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley, which is like, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's like Hippie Street, USA. It's like Main Street hippie, hippie time, USA. Probably a place, that hippies would never fear to dread. So we go there, and we're on the corner right there in front of the UC San Francisco campus there at Sproul Plaza. And we used to sit there, and people would sit on the steps and watch us, and we put on a show, for a couple of hours. It was pretty cool. And one day this guy came up to me, and he goes, man, it's a shame you guys don't have a band. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he says, hey, if you had a band, man, you guys could be working at my nightclub, and you could be my opening band all week. And I said, well, we got a band. I lied, and I told him that we had a band. So me and Steve Wright put together a band in 1 week, and we had Stevie's brother-in-law was Larry Lynch. And he goes, hey, my brother-in-law's a pretty good drummer. Let's get him. So we got Larry coming in, and then he got another guy from high school that he knew that used to play pretty good guitar. It was Dave Carpenter. So we put that band together in less than a week, and that band stayed together for 20 years and made 20 albums. Unbelievable.
Now, wasn't Robbie Dunbar in there before Dave Carpenter?
Yeah, Robbie was on our first album, and he played on the Chartbusters album too. Robbie at the time was in Earthquake.
Right.
Earthquake was Earthquake with John Dukas as lead vocalist. They were doing really well. They had been on A&M Records, and they had a couple of turntable hits. So they were kind of like, they were the first band to garner attention around here. And of course, in Berkeley, it's a little different than the kinds of bands that they had in San Francisco. San Francisco was a different scene, and Berkeley was was across the bay. It was a different scene.
Now, was Steven able to contribute at all to this album? I mean, I understand after the stroke, he had very
Oh
limited.
yeah, yeah. Oh God, man, I'm telling you, it used to make me cry because Stevie was, he was a real strong band member. But once he had the strike, he couldn't, he couldn't spell, he couldn't walk, he couldn't talk. It was really bad, and we tried. I mean, it was for a couple of years to get him to come back, but he never did come back. And then when he did finally die and he had a heart attack, it became a shock because I thought he was going to be like this for a couple more years. But hey, man, death, happens to you. Of the five guys that caught, the five guys that cut the breakup song.
Right.
That was only two guys are still left remain standing. Me and Larry Lynch. Larry Lynch, the drummer. So me and Larry are still around, but Dave Carpenter, we lost him to a heart attack. Gary Phillips lost him to cancer, and Steve Wright lost him to a stroke. So it was, and I had to put together a new band, and in the last 2 or 3 years, and. Thank God I had my son on lead guitar because, this fathers and sons is pretty, you're pretty close over the years. And, we had some great guitar players in our band, mainly Joe Satriani, but Joe taught Rye when Rye was young. And he was a student of Joe Satriani's, and then when that was over, he went to Berklee School of Music in Boston, and he graduated from Cal Arts in L.A., jazz guitar major. So my kid can really play, man, and he can play. He can actually read music, which is really something different.
You also got Dave Danza on there, right?
Yeah, now Dave has an interesting problem. Dave has been our drummer for the last probably 10 years. But he also has a real estate appraisal company, which he runs here down in California. Lately, he's been making so much money, he can't go on the road. He told me, I said, look, I can't go on the road next week and do these 4 dates because I'll lose too much money. So I had to put him on the shelf and say, look, come back, Dave, when you can spare a little more time. So we got Sammy Hagar's drummer by the name of Dave Lauser. And Dave Lauser was in the Wabo Ritas. And he's an old friend of mine. And Sammy said, why don't you try Dave? And he's an unbelievably great drummer. And we did. We rehearsed with Dave, and it was really great. It was like he reminded me of Keith Moon, man. He was real busy, a real busy drummer, lots of fills. I really like that. It's exciting.
That's very cool, especially being able to get somebody that has a name that's out there that somebody knows and has the talent to go ahead and carry on for someone that.
Yeah. Well, that's also what happened with Robert Berry. Robert had to replace Steve Wright on the bass, which is damn near impossible because Steve was kind of like the John Entwistle of the bass, But Robert came along, and he also owns a studio that we record in down in Campbell called Soundtech Studios. And, one day we were just rehearsing, and, maybe once a week we would get together and rehearse down in Campbell. And I remember one day Rye going, hey, Rye, Dad, let's just put the band together right now. Let's take this band on the road. And it was really cool because, I was writing songs again after all these years. And, everything really went really well. He's like, I expected everything to be hard, but everything was really relatively easy, and it was great to be writing songs again and recording them in the studio. It was a fantastic feeling.
Now, he was in Hush, right?
Yes, that is correct. He was in Hush. He was in Emerson, Lake and Palmer when it was Emerson, Lake and whoever.
Yeah, when it was the big, they
And
called him the Three.
yeah, the bad thing was that Keith Emerson committed suicide less than a year ago, wasn't it? About half a year ago.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he said that he couldn't play anymore.
Yeah, it took him up. It shook him up. I remember Robert being shaken up. I couldn't believe my good friend took his own life. I mean, that's really. But he had a same thing my mom had. He had real bad arthritis in his fingers, and apparently it got to the point where he couldn't play anymore. And if you were a keyboard whiz, I guess that was enough to kill you, because that's when he took his own life. But that guy was a great keyboard player, one of the all-time greatest.
He was amazing. I mean,
Oh yeah.
It's got to put you in a mindset where you can't perform anymore, that you're going to go ahead and then take that route, though. You know what I'm saying? I mean...
Yeah, it is. It's personal, and you're thinking, should I keep doing it? I remember when Stevie died, because I was very close to Steve, and he and I were partners, songwriting partners. We wrote Breakup Song and Jeopardy, and 99% of the songs we wrote together. But I remember when after he had the stroke, it was like we were pulling so hard for him to recover that he could never really recover. You know what I mean? Our hopes were much more insistent than he was. And like I said before, he was one of the three guys that died in my band. It's hard to, people say, where's Gary? Where's Dave? And I tell them, well, he's gone, but I don't think it sinks in that he's really gone. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we've been very lucky over the years that I've been great, because, when people dropped off, other guys dropped in, and we were able to continue the band.
Well, I mean, some people got to realize, though. I mean, if you take a look at a lot of the classic rock bands that are still out there, you're lucky if you have one or two left, and you're extremely lucky in the case where if you have the singer in the band. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we used to do a thing called the Kihn, which we would do every summer at the radio station. We would do a big concert outside at the Shoreline Amphitheater, and we'd have really good headliners come and play, and we would open for them. And one of the people that we had was the second year that we had this. We had the Who, and the Who is one of my all-time favorite bands. But at the time, Entwistle had just died, like 2 weeks right before the tour started.
Right.
And they had to come up with a guy to replace Entwistle right at the last minute, and that was when we played with him. And I remember saying to myself, "Wow, Roger's still singing, he's still doing a great job, and Pete is doing a great job, but they're the last two guys left in this band."
It's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, well, life goes on, and if people would have come up to me back in the 80s and said, you'd be the last guy to survive, I would have laughed at them, because back in the 80s, I was doing blow and smoking weed and drinking Jack Daniels, and I was trying to kill myself quicker than anybody else. But you know what? As the years went by, for some reason, I didn't die, and I quit doing all that bad stuff, and here I am. And I'm keeping the band going. So, that's my job.
Now, you were part of the Berserkly Records, is that right?
Oh, yeah. Integral part of the early Berserkly.
Now, I mean, from the stories I've heard, I mean, that could be a movie.
It would be. I might write it as a movie one of these days, because the adventures that we had was 4 original Berserkly bands. There was the Greg Kihn band, Earthquake, the Rubinoos, and the Modern Lovers, Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers. And I remember we didn't have enough money for us all to go out and make an album, but we had enough money to put our money together, and we went and we made the Berserkly Chartbusters Volume 1, which was a sampler, and everybody had like 2 or 3 songs on the sampler, except for the Modern Lovers. I think they had 4 songs. And we put that thing out, and at the time, I was working. My day job was working in the record store right there in Berkeley called Rather Ripped Records. It was a legendary record store right down on Telegraph Avenue. And, over the years, I took that, the first album, the first album cover, there's me standing in front of the store. That's me standing in front of Rather Ripped Records with the Rather Ripped Records sign behind me. And I was on break. I was on break. I was working. And the guy goes, I'll give you 10, 15 minutes to go out and take a picture, and then you got to come back and work. So that's what we did, and it was pretty cool. And I remember me and Jonathan Richman shrink wrapping. We had about 10,000 copies of Berserkly Chartbusters, and we had to shrink wrap them ourselves. And I remember going in after hours to Rather Ripped Records, and they had a shrink wrap machine, and we'd be sitting there for hours doing hundreds of shrink wraps. Once you shrink wrap an album, it was sealed, and we used to send them out like that. And I wonder if anybody that bought those early Berserkly albums realized that me and Jonathan shrink wrapped every damn one of them.
That's some loving care right there to put it all right into your work.
Well, yeah, you remember what it was like to have records. And, you couldn't leave you had to respect records. You couldn't leave them in your hot car because they would warp, you know what I mean? You couldn't lend them to your little sister because she would scratch them. And, records were kind of fragile. You really had to respect them and take care of them if you loved the music. Because if you didn't, they'd abuse them and they'd be gone, and you couldn't play the records. But I remember because we used to treat our records like royalty. We have them in a great place. It was not too hot, not too cold, and everybody had those orange crates full of records, man. Albums, vinyl. I remember those. That was the best.
It's got to blow your mind away now, thinking that these kids today aren't even going to know what a record is. I mean,
well, they don't record the same way. We used to use magnetic tape. I remember when we did the first couple of albums at CBS Studios on Folsom Street in San Francisco, which was a very famous recording studio. And eventually they shut it down. But when it was the CBS studio, we go in there after hours. We used to get like a half price after hours. We go working midnight to 6 when nobody else wanted it. They would rent us the studio. We made that whole Berserkly Chartbusters after hours, and it was pretty cool. But I just remember thinking, we were such a small little, hole in the wall operation. How are we going to ever make it? And you know what? We made it. So it was like crazy.
Now, after all that time, you went ahead, you transferred over to being a morning show DJ. I mean, and you've interviewed some of the most famous musicians in the world.
Yeah, I was lucky enough that I got to do that. And I love music and I love musicians. And I'll tell you the truth, most of the people that I talked to on the radio, I already knew them. We were already friends, so I could interview a Steve Miller or a Huey Lewis or a Boz Scaggs or somebody like that, and then we would just talk like regular guys because we would be friends. And I remember interviewing the Beatles, it was only Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr left, and Pete Best. And I recommended, I got Pete Best 2 or 3 times on the show, talk about the early days in Hamburg. And I had Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr on the show. We all talked about, the Beatles' early days. And one of the questions that I asked Paul, I also asked Ringo, was where did the Beatles get their records? Like, who gave John Lennon a copy of Twist and Shout by the Isleys? Who did that? Because they didn't have any import stores back in those days in Liverpool. They didn't have any, no way to get those records. And I said, well, how did the Beatles get them? And he said, oh, it's really simple. Guys that we grew up with in high school were now in the Merchant Marines. And the Merchant Marines go back and forth between Baltimore, New York, and Liverpool, and they would bring back the records. The guys would stop in New York and get a stack of 45s, bring them back to Liverpool, and then they would turn up in, in flea markets and secondhand stores, and that's where the Beatles came along, because they didn't have money. A guy would show up with, Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, the great stuff like that. And they would, they'd have to learn the chords to the songs really quick before somebody else came along and bought the album. So it was a great time for the Beatles. And it gave me the idea of a character of the name of Dustbin Bob, who was the Beatles' best friends, and he furnished the Beatles with all of their early covers, and he became their best friend. And that's what Dustbin Bob did. He gave them, all those covers that the Beatles did, especially the early days, like Chains and Boys and Twist and Shout, and there's a bunch of stuff. They did a great job on those covers because of Dustbin Bob. He lent them the records, and they learned them, and then after they were famous and Beatlemania came along, they remained friends for the rest of their lives. And in the end, Dustbin Bob saves the Beatles from assassination in the Philippines back in 1967.
And that transferred into your book, Rubber Soul.
Rubber Soul was all about that, and it's really a unique book. It's a lot of fun to read. And I took, I was a Beatles scholar, so I took all these little tiny facts that I knew about the Beatles. A lot of them I learned from Pete Best and Ringo and Paul, and I put them in the book. Just little things, so it would have much more authenticity. And I was lucky. I was lucky to do that. That was a great idea, coming up with Dustbin Bob.
Yeah, it definitely was. Now, was there
but I'm gonna have to send you. I'm gonna have to send you a copy of that to read.
Yeah, I would definitely enjoy that.
Yeah, I'll get John to throw you one in the mail.
Now, was there ever an issue that you had when you were doing an interview where you just had to pull the questions out of somebody? I mean, me personally, I did Johnny Winter's last interview that he ever did, and I had everything all set up. I mean, I knew about the marijuana commercials he did when they thought they were going to legalize the Janis Joplin stuff. I mean, playing Lucille and one-word answers. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was just like, have you?
Oh, totally. Hey, I also did Johnny Winters towards the end. He had a tour bus, and he came by the station, and the guy the road manager guy.
Yeah.
He says, "Look, I don't think Johnny's going to want to play anything, but he'll talk to you." I go, all right, I kind of wanted him to play, but what the hell? So they bring him in, and I was the kind of guy that I had like 4 or 5 guitars, in the control room just all the time, just, having guitars around. So while I'm talking to Johnny, I keep trying to play Memphis, by Chuck, and that was his first single Johnny's first single
Right.
was Memphis. And I keep trying to play it, and I keep doing it wrong. So I'm going, and I keep getting it wrong. And finally, and Johnny's like sitting right across from me. He goes, "Give me that damn guitar." And he takes it. "Here's how you do it, you idiot." And he shows me how to do it. I'm like, "Okay, got it. I got it." He played the song.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I had to give him the wrong one a couple of times before he finally took the bait. And he was a great guy, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm looking over some of the things here that you have coming out, some of the things that you've done. What has ever came about 45 RPM?
45 RPM was a screenplay that I wrote. It was actually going to be a 1-hour show on A&E, and it was going to be, and I had based it on some stuff that happened early in my life and some other people, other people around me's lives. Like I've always been good friends with Kenny Laguna. Kenny Laguna is Joan Jett's manager, and I've been good friends with Joni for many, many years, going all the way back to the Runaways. And I remember Kenny Laguna. Not only was he Joan Jett's manager, but he was also in the Shondells. He says, "Yeah." You go, "Hey, we'll be walking down the street, and I'll hear Crimson and Clover, or one of these other Shondells." And he goes, "Yeah, I sang background on that," and he'd start singing behind me, and he would sing the entire background part. So he was around for their time with Morris Levy at Roulette Records, and of course Morris Levy at the time was known as the godfather of the music business, and he was connected to the mob. And a lot of the stuff that happened to those guys in the band, I knew those guys, and they were telling me stories, and I had to base it on that because it was such a great story. But nobody ever bought it, and I still have it here in my manuscripts, and I'll probably pull that one out by the end of the year, do it a rewrite, and try it again, because it's a great idea for a series, and I just had so much fun writing it. When you write this stuff, you're God. You make all these great situations up and just put the people in the situations and see what they do.
Well, now, especially with things like Netflix, crowdfunding, things like that, there's always an opportunity to go ahead and get your work put out.
Yeah, and in this world that we're living in right now, content is king. And everybody needs content. I mean, everybody. You hear about, Amazon needs content. Everybody that ever produced books is now screaming for more and more content, more and more books. So I've written six novels to date. I got another one working right now. Should be coming out probably right around the first of the year, but I'm about halfway through the next Dustbin Bob story. And I already got the one after that plotted out in my mind. So, it's always nice when you're on the road and you got your laptop, you can do a little writing instead of staring out the window. So that's a lot. That's a positive thing that you can do on the road, that you can get some work done,
Oh, for sure. Now, one last piece of advice I want you to give. Somebody who has had such a wonderful career like yours. I mean, you've had hit songs, you've been a DJ for years, you've written books, you got screenplays. Do you think that the musicians out there today will ever have a chance to do anything like that again? I mean, do you think there's ever going to be another Ozzy, another Alice Cooper, another name that's going to be stuck that's out there?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of do because, rock and roll is a mutant art form. It keeps mutating. It keeps changing. Every generation has a different take on rock and roll. Now, obviously, me and you, guys like us, we were into the Beatles and the Stones and, Dylan and all that stuff, late 60s, early 70s. But really, young musicians now coming up in the world, I think rather than being stifled, I think that they're going to be drowned in opportunities. Because they're going to have all the, for instance, getting your songs noticed in this world now. I mean, back what did we used to do? We used to go around in a Volkswagen Beetle with a back seat full of records, handing them out. Nowadays they're downloading. There's so many formats for music that I would think. If you were a young band starting out today, you'd have a lot of different options and places you could go. As far as guys writing, and I'm sure there'll always be great writers and better writers than me out there. And just think, for every song like me and you can write, somebody out there is writing, you lost that love and feeling. So don't worry, it's always going to be moving forward.
Now, do you think social media and things like that are changing everything? I mean, you see people that are icons like Gene Simmons has got to go ahead and say that he's going to trademark the devil horns for a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
You got Metallica doing
Yeah.
Lady Gaga. I mean, people who's been in the game for years.
Yeah, I remember when Gene came to one of my gigs at the Greg Kihn band. We were playing in Nashville, and Kiss was playing down the street. And lo and behold, here comes Kiss to see the Greg Kihn band in full makeup, man. It was really cool. And guess who they brought with them to the gig?
Who's that?
Roy Orbison. Wow. The late, great Roy Orbison, man. I tell you, I got down on my knees and kissed Roy Orbison's feet, man. He was one of my all-time idols. And, Gene says, oh, yeah, we were staying in the same hotel, so we decided to bring him along. I'm like, wow, that's great, man. Whenever you get an idea to bring Roy Orbison or anybody along, just bring him, man. It's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
But I remember that night, we had a tour bus parked in front of the gig, and somebody had unleashed the air brake, and that bus went rolling down the street, and it went about a half a block, and it ran into a side of a building, and I'll tell you, it must have cost us $100,000. I remember because the bus was rolling. It was like, hey, this thing is rolling, and crunch hits hit the side of the step, and the front of the bus actually protruded inside the club. It was freaky, man.
Oh, that had been a sight for sure.
Those people were ready to just shit in their pants when we got. Here comes a bus right through the brick wall. I mean, most people would have just dived for cover. And you know what? For some reason, the guys came out and they just kept playing. It was like no interruption to the show. It was wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. I've had a blessed life. I've always been lucky. I'm really super lucky that I ever had the opportunity to be a musician. And it's just been a wonderful life, man. And I've been doing it since I was 13. And here I am, a gazillion years old. I'm still doing it. And it's still fun, and I still love it.
Have you adapted to social media? Do you have Facebook or Twitter or anything like that?
Yeah, we got everything. We got all the social media things, Facebook and all that stuff. I got a webmaster, a guy that I pay that makes the thing, and I contribute stuff like every couple of days, my writings, but it takes somebody to keep that whole thing going. And we got a webmaster. He's really good, named Michael Brandvold. He does a great job. And I also got a publicity guy, John Lappin, that's setting up all the interviews for me and stuff. So things have been really good. I got to say, knock on wood. Hold on, is there any wood? Yeah, here's a little wood right there. Okay, knock on wood that this is going to keep going for years and years. I mean, I love playing with my son in the band, and I got 2 more grandsons coming, okay? They're 5 and 8, and you give them another 10 years, they're going to be 3 generations of bands, 3 generations of Kihns in the Greg Kihn band. Won't that be insane?
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. Good for you.
Oh, yeah, I love that kind of stuff. You know, I was bragging to Sammy Hagar at a charity event about 6 months ago. I said, you know, we're hanging out in the backstage, and I'm talking to Sammy. I said, hey, Sammy, you know, I got two grandchildren now, 5 and 3. He goes, hey, man, that's nothing. He says, I got, he pulls me aside. He kind of says it in whispery tones, right? He goes, I got a kid younger than my grandkids. And I go, well, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that the woman that you're married to now just had a baby? Yeah, she just had a baby 2 weeks ago. My grandchildren are older than my actual children. It's insane. So I just shut up, man. What can I say? The guy is obviously not shooting blanks.
Definitely not, man. Definitely not.
Well, you know what? This is what our lives are about, you know, like procreating, making music, playing music, and bring your kids up right and teach them to play the guitar.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Now, I see you and your son, you guys got a pretty busy summer here. Some dates in July, dates August, one in September. Back to Berkeley, actually, in September there.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. We used to play a place in that same corner that was called the Long Branch Saloon. Of course, that was 20, 30 years ago, but it'd be nice to be in that same building again and see what they've done with it. Also, it's just great to be back and to be playing. And we go out on the road and we play all over the country, and then we come back to Berkeley and we play a club, and it's like a homecoming, man. I love it so much, and it's a real family event.
Is Tommy Two-Tone going to be your opener for the whole tour, or just a couple of the days?
Well, I think Tommy's for some of the. I think for the most is mostly the opening tour, but there may be others as we go. So I know Tommy Two-Tone. Of course, everybody knows Jenny, right?
Right, man. 867-5309.
The guy, he wrote one of those songs that's going to be a classic for many, many years. Just like, you know, Doug Feiger, like the same guy that was in the Knack, and he wrote My Sharona. You know, these are all friends of mine that hit the bullseye and early in their career. And they're all dead now. Actually, Doug's dead. You know, all these guys. But still, the music lives on. And, you know, if you can, like, for the rest of my life, people are always going to say, oh, yeah, he wrote, regardless of what else Greg Kihn wrote, he wrote Jeopardy and the Breakup Song. And for that, he'll be immortalized. So I'm happy. You know, and I look back on the new album, which is called Rekindled, by the way. Can't get rid of those damn pun names, can we?
Hey, man, if they
Rekindled, I mean, we got, how many Kihn puns are there in my album covers? Probably 20 of them, but we're keeping going, and Rekindle is the newest one. All new original material, recorded in the studio, with my son on lead guitar, and the new band. And I think it's the best comeback album of the year, and that's what I tell people. I think it's the best comeback album of the year.
What's the standout track? What's going to be the main single?
Oh, I think Big Pink Flamingos. You know, that was the first song that we recorded for the album, and we just came up with it. One day, Rye was sitting around a studio playing the guitar. He was playing that guitar riff that was going to become Big Pink Flamingos. He's bum 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 bum. I'm going, hey, that's really catchy, Rye. What is that? Because I just made it up, Dad. Keep playing it, and out of the clear blue sky, I started singing Big Pink Flamingos. I don't know where it came from. Like the lyrics were floating in the air in front of me, and I just reached out and grabbed them. But we wrote that song in about 15 minutes, and it wrote itself. That was the really cool thing. It wrote itself. So I mean, that set the pace for most of the stuff on the album. We'd go down there in the morning, and we'd have a song idea, and by 3 or 4 o'clock, we'd have that sucker cut, and we'd be putting vocals on it. So we really did the album quickly and without a lot of painstaking things. We just did it quick, and we did it right, and it just felt good, man. I think all the albums I make are going to be really like this. It makes so much sense. And also, I got to tell you, writing songs when you get older, you don't want to write the usual, love songs. When you get to be my age, you got to have some little lyrics with some meat on the bone. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Now,
yeah. So I mean, I'd take a couple of extra minutes to try to come up with some ideas that would last. And we got a lot of really interesting songs on the new album. We got The Life I Got, which is autobiographical. Anthem. We got Cassandra. That's a big, hard, punky song. The Brain Police, Train Monkey. Yeah, we had a lot of songs on that album that were a lot of fun. And we wrote them quick, and we recorded them quick.
Did you get to play any of them live so far for any crowds yet?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, and the nice thing about them is people are digging the new songs. They haven't even heard them. Like I whip out Big Pink Flamingos and people are singing along. They're singing along, and they've only heard the thing for one verse. So I think when this hits the airwaves, it's going to be a natural. It's like I said before, we love playing. When the Great Kihn Band goes out, plays a gig. You got to do Jeopardy and breakup song. You got to do your old hits, or people are going to throw tomatoes at you. And you got to do some of the new songs from the new album, because then they get mad. And then we do a lot of our classic songs from our middle catalog period. Like Springsteen songs and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So you've got to be able to put those into the show. So if you go see the Great Kihn Band now, you'll see old songs, new songs, borrowed songs, blues songs, and it all just flows together really nice.
How many times do you think you've played the breakup song or Jeopardy live? Tens of thousands?
Oh, Jesus. Well, let's see. Breakup song was 81. I probably played how many gigs? Probably 500 to 600 gigs a year. Well, probably like maybe 10,000 times, I guess. I'm looking back now. I'm thinking, Jesus, how does this stay fresh? Every time we do that song, it's like the first time we do it. So it never feels stale or anything. I guess every time we start playing it, there's that burst of energy that comes out with the band, and it just carries the song along.
Well, and it's got to be a great feeling too, because the fans got to go wild. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's something.
Oh yeah, I mean,
your life.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, like with Jeopardy, they love Jeopardy, but they also love the Weird Al parody. I Lost One Jeopardy, which was a hit like about a half a year later when Jeopardy was a hit. Then Weird Al comes out, puts that out there, and it was a hit all over again. And he put it on an album that was destined to go triple platinum. So I made a lot of mailbox money from Weird Al, and God bless him.
Did you ever get to play that song with Weird Al? Did you ever come out on stage or anything like that?
Gee, you know what? I don't think I have. I know I've been there when he's played it, and I've watched him do it.
I know you were in the video.
Yeah, I'm in the video. That was a lot of fun. Weird Al's a good friend of mine, so and when he does your song, it's like you've arrived.
Oh,
like
sure.
he did a parody of your song. Now you're really legitimate.
Yeah, I think the only person who ever turned him down was Prince.
That's right. That's right. He told me that on the phone, Prince, and I can see because I think Prince was probably taking himself real seriously.
Yeah, but in a situation like that, it's Weird Al. You got to go ahead and and get that.
Yeah, when he called me out of the clear blue sky, I was super flattered. I was thinking, man, this because if he's parodying me, that means I'm good, well enough to be parodied, and it's really something. I thank him every day for doing that. God bless you. Thanks, Weird Al.
Now, people want to hear Pink Flamingos. They want to get rekindled. Is there YouTube videos? Is it iTunes? Amazon?
Yep. We're in every format. We're in Amazon, we're in iTunes, we're in Spotify. I mean, you name it, and we're on it. So we're on every format. You can go to the GregKihn.com website. It's where everything really begins and ends. The GregKihn.com website. You can buy the CD. You can download the CD. You can download the album. You can get it all autographed or whatever you want. Also, we've also got all the novels there, and books and stuff, and T-shirts, and all the swag can be purchased at GregKihn.com. And I really hope people listen to this and they want to own it. It's a really fun album to listen to, and just it fits in your life. People say to me now, these years have passed by, and they'll say, the new album really sounds like a Greg Kihn album. It doesn't sound like a guy 20 years later. You know what I mean? A guy that's completely changed. It sounds a lot like you used to sound. And I'm flattered. I mean, that's what we wanted. We wanted it to be like a Greg Kihn album. And boy, it is. It's the Greg Kihnest album you ever heard.
What was it like doing a video again?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. We cut 3 of them in one day. And we did big pink flamingos. It's hard to say. We did that. We did Cassandra, and we did The Life I Got. So if you go over to the GregKihn.com website, you can look at these videos right now. It's free. Check them out. Listen to the songs. Look at the. Yeah, they're just sitting there waiting for you, and a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun making the videos, and it was great.
One interesting thing I see that you do here on the site is that you actually give fans a chance to buy an autograph CD.
Oh yeah, I got to. You got to. And you know what? I go down to the office. I got to maintain an office in Berkeley, right?
Right.
Down on Main Street, down on University, right in the middle of all the madness down there. And I go into the office about once a week, and I sign about 100 CDs, and we send them out. We got people all over the world, like Japan and China and Russia and Germany and all these places, France, where they're the CD is selling through. And when Jeopardy was a big hit around the world, it was a global hit. It was number 1 around the world in France and Germany and Yugoslavia and you name it, every country you can name. So when I used to get mailbox money from ASCAP, I'd look on there and it'd be like, hey, look, I made money in Brazil, I made money in Argentina and all these crazy places.
Well, this is one of the things too that it gives people a reason to buy a hard copy. You know, I mean, you don't see
Yeah, yeah,
CDs that in that many places anymore. I mean, stores, the record stores are closed down basically.
yeah, yeah. And you do want to copy the CD because you want to play it in your car, or you want to save it for later, or you want to play in the middle of the night or whatever. You need a copy of the CD. And I know it's not records because we used to cherish our records, but hey, at least it's something you can take with you. And I like I said before, I autograph about 100 of them a week, so I know that the people are still buying them out there, which is great.
Good for you, man. I'm glad everything's going good. I've always been a fan, and it was great talking to you.
Well, thank you, and not going for Michael there, my friend. I really appreciate the fact that we had a nice interview today, and I'll tell you, I love my job, man. It really, I know it's a cliche, but, I mean, think about it. I could have been in so many places. I mean, here I wind up, I'm playing guitar for a living. I got a great band. I put my 20th album out. Life is good. I really got to say, it really is a wonderful thing, and I love playing. I can't wait to go hit the road and be playing for people live in front of them. So if you see that we're playing in your town, please come by and see us while you still can. It's a great band. It's a great band. We got some great songs, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, I know I'll be checking you out myself. You'll be in my neck of the woods on the 29th, and then
Beautiful.
Yeah,
we'll be in in Cincinnati on the 29th.
You'll be in Buffalo.
What was it? Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What was the name of the club? There was a nightclub that we used to play in Cincinnati. Every year we would go back, we'd play this place, and it wasn't the Agora, was it?
Cincinnati is the 15th. You're going to be in Buffalo.
Oh, wait, no, hold on.
You're going to be in a Buffalo.
How about
Buffalo on the 29th?
What was the name of that place that we used to play? It was Bogart's?
In Buffalo? Or
was it Bogart?
In Buffalo or Cincinnati?
Probably Cincinnati.
I'm located out of Buffalo.
Geez. Well, that's a whole different animal.
That's where you're playing on the 29th, man. It's Buffalo. Cincinnati.
Okay, all right, yeah. 15th. Hey, can you make it down to the gig?
Yeah, I definitely will be there, man.
Well, come up and introduce yourself to me, and we'll shake hands and talk about whatever. Maybe we'll have a cold one together.
Sounds good to me.
Hey, thanks for talking to me this morning. I really appreciate the interview.
Oh, thanks for the stories, man. It was great talking to you, and it feels great when you have someone who does the talking and tells the stories and keeps it exciting.
I'm excited about this. I love my life, and I really never get tired of talking about it. And like I said before, I do consider myself blessed. So I thank the Lord upstairs and everybody else downstairs to keep me playing. I love it.
Well, keep on rocking, man.
Well, thanks a ton, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, and for those that are listening, they want to go ahead and they want to get rekindled. They want to know the tour dates. They want to buy an autographed copy. You go right to gregkihn.com, and it's got links to everything. It's Facebook, it's Twitter, YouTube.
Yep.
Everything you need.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. So just remember gregkihn.com.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.